Okay, we are here with Paolo Spinetti.
Good evening, good morning, everyone. And Roy. Hello.
Hello. So, this whole thing it just went into overdrive again. And
Yeah.
it's just been a few days where you were off the grid, I was off the grid, and we missed out on so many things. We're just playing catch up for just a couple of days. At what point before has it been an issue that you weren't on top of the news for a couple of days and you feel so far behind?
Never. So just put in context for everyone, I'm in the middle of moving home. So everything's in a box, computers are in a box. I've resigned from my job. So the company phone had to go back. So I'm trying to get so no internet essentially for just a couple of days. And Roy's trying to send me messages saying, watch this, watch this, watch this. And I'm on the drive over to here. And I'm like, holy crap, how much news have I missed out in just 3 days?
And I was in Canberra.
Beautiful place. Cold. But yes, it does have internet though.
Oh, the internet's not that good.
Not that convenient.
The internet, the mobile phone internet was like how it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, but Roy, it's got telecom tower. You should get really good reception from that thing.
It's actually closed at the moment.
There you go.
We wanted to go there, but no, it's temporarily closed. Tidman Billa with a dish. Visitor centre closed at the moment.
Wow, there's always Starlink.
And there was Questacon. We went to Questacon.
Awesome place. So for anyone that's not in Australia, Questacon is kind of like the science nerd mecca.
Science po.
Yeah, it has all this for children, of course, but big kids like us as well, where everything's interactive. So
guess what they had stuff on?
What?
The AI revolution.
Already.
And I looked at the screen. There was a section where you could write your questions about AI, and the stuff that these kids were saying was, I'm like, they are pretty switched on. It's like, will the AI take our jobs? Will we, will they develop feelings? It was really, and these are from the minds of kids, so they know what's going on.
Yeah, they're the new leaders of the world that should have been in power now, I think. If they're thinking this way and our own current leaders are not, that says something.
Oh, the current leaders, they're just thinking about, I don't know, gross domestic product.
I wish they're thinking about that. I think they're thinking about security is the number one thing, and votes.
Yes, AUKUS.
Yes, all about the alliance between the Five Eyes for those that are in the biz, the Australia, United Kingdom, New Zealand, United States, of course, and Canada. They make the Five Eyes, right? And we're in a strategic alliance within that. And I think that's all it is. Right?
I was thinking you could have Canada, Australia, maybe just Canada, New Zealand, and the United States. They should make an alliance and call it Kansas.
Okay, Kansas?
Kansas.
Yeah, I know, but the way Americans are really good with their pronunciation, except the word Kansas.
Oh, really?
Well, look at the way it's spelt. The actual lettering, they're very, pronunciation on semi, right? Consistency with the letters, consistency in how you pronounce words, right? They try and keep that constant consonants. But
I thought that they elongated everything.
Kansas? I look at the word, it doesn't make sense.
They elongate a lot of words.
Yeah.
I found the reverse. I found a word that they actually shorten it and we elongate.
What's that one?
We have mobile phones.
Yeah, they call it cell.
They
Cell
call
phone.
them mobile phones.
Not originally. I used to call them a cell. I'll call you on my cell. Remember?
Oh yeah, cell, yeah.
And then we stuffed it up.
Ah,
Let's get back to the AI. So you're telling that I'm sure everyone's listening to go, what are they talking about? We are listening to this, if they are listening, because of AI.
cut it out. Should we cut that bit out?
No. It's good banter because people, I think, the more they get to see people as people, the better it is.
So we aren't AIs. Yeah, I get it.
But if an AI is Whisper is using my YouTube conversations in order to create a version of Paolo, then it needs all that banter to create an accurate Paolo.
Very good. Well, so what we've caught up with a bit of news. We've watched a bit of the AI Dilemma, which is highly recommend that. Very well put together presentation.
Click on the link here or here or here or here.
Oh no! Now I'm going to have to put that in.
That's why I did it.
Have to put that in. Okay. It is. So these language models, they're trained on language, and then they found that because they're trained on language, you could treat everything like a kind of language, like image, voice, text. Well, text is obviously language, so yeah. But then everything
Code.
like lots, pretty much anything that conveys information is a language.
Basically.
And so you could train it to, like, normally you would have a training data and the target. So if you had training data, let's say Wi-Fi signals, and the target, which is a video camera image, you could eventually train an AI to work out the position of people using just the Wi-Fi data.
Which I think they did, right? They successfully were able in one of the trials to be able to interpolate that data into a person position.
Yeah. Well, they
Which is
would
pretty
need
freaky.
they would need a camera that sees Wi-Fi images, photons, but yeah.
But yeah, well, I mean, technically, we're talking about ultraviolet. Sorry, ultraviolet.
Radio.
Electromagnetic spectrum is what I'm thinking of. So essentially, if you can look at it from that point of view, light, very small subsection, if they can actually interpret now radio signals in some sort of image, then technically the electromagnetic spectrum is now a possible language, right? Is my thought. So what else are we not seeing that's out in front of our eyes where the AI would be able to interpret that data and be able to generate an image for us? That's kind of
There's a lot
pretty,
of stuff. Yeah.
well, yeah.
Then there's also what else did we see? We saw that because the AIs can do this, they're on a potentially double exponential curve now, because all the independent disciplines, text synthesis, speech synthesis, sound processing, image processing, they used to be separate disciplines, and now they're just they're all training the same model, the same language model to get their results. So it's really now the convergence of all of these previously separate disciplines, and they're all concentrated on large language models.
Yeah, LLMs.
Yeah. So
And that's that double exponential, right? So you've just taken every computer scientist working on separate AI problems into the one field now. And now on top of that, the ability for AI to learn and refine its own data set. You got that double exponential. At least that's how my brain's interpreting everything.
And then as the data set, so as the language models get bigger, there's all these emergent properties like theory of mind.
Yeah, that I want to talk about this one because that is the interesting bit. So you brought it up.
Okay.
Where are we going with it?
So as the language model, as the number of parameters increases, all of a sudden, these language models just suddenly are able to do things like math, like language, talk with text. Even when you aren't training it to talk in a certain language, it'll develop the capability without having explicitly been instructed to do that. It's like an emergent capability. But then there's also this theory of mind that they discovered only recently, where the AI could, you could explain the theory of mind. It's about knowing what other people are thinking.
Yeah, they talk about it in this YouTube clip as, from memory, the ability for the individual to have a strategic thought, like a 2-year-old to have a strategic thought beyond themselves, and then go up to the age of 8 or 9, have a strategic thought beyond themselves. The way I interpret it, so from psychology and what I remember, theory of mind, there's 2 main things I remember, which isn't a lot. 2 main things. As a child, you develop theory of mind, and you really start to develop the core properties of theory of mind at around 8, right? That's the first thing I remember. The second thing I remember is theory of mind is the way the individual sees themselves and relates to others. So give a tangible example. I'm a 2-year-old and I'm trying to convey a conversation to someone else, either a 2-year-old or a 20-year-old. And the way I'm conveying my thoughts, I'm not actually separating myself in that conversation. I'm doing a lot of interpretation where that 20-year-old is feeling what I'm feeling. So if I'm sad and I'm mad, I'm expecting that that person knows I'm sad and I'm mad because I'm feeling it. That's the theory of mind. As you grow up and you start developing more capability around self and awareness, you develop the capabilities of sympathy and empathy, or these are what I call human emergent capabilities, where you start feeling others through an empathetic or a sympathetic way, but you understand fundamentally that what Roy's feeling right now isn't the way I'm feeling. I'm an individual, right? And we're separated, not by just physical separation, but emotional separation. I can interpret that. I can manipulate that. And that's where that whole psychopathic sort of, you hear about people that have psychopathic tendencies. They may not have the empathetic ability, but they can mimic it and then they can manipulate it. So you hear about corporate CEOs and things like that.
So just to clarify for the people watching, a psychopath, from what I understand, is a human being. Well, let's say that we know traditionally a psychopath is a human being with downregulated emotional center, which means they don't feel certain things that we would feel, or they would feel it in a very minuscule, diminished way.
Yeah, I'd say in a muted way or not at all. So they won't get great pleasure, like we feel love, for example. Let's take a basic human emotion. They won't necessarily feel love. They'll be able to emulate it, mimic it, understand it, and manipulate it. They get a sense of fulfillment from all those things, the manipulation and the outcome that they desire, as opposed to the actual feeling itself.
Which makes, if an AI, forget the word AI, if there's an intelligence, it's mostly human intelligence that doesn't have that strong emotional center. I mean, there are people in society who are psychopaths, but who are very good members of society. Not every psychopath is a bad person. Is that correct?
I can't remember the definition of a psychopath, but I get what you're saying. I think what we're saying is those that have stunted theory of mind or limited capabilities of empathy and actual empathy, like to feel. So the differences between empathy and sympathy for those out there. Empathy is the actual ability to feel what that individual is actually feeling or develop a sense of that feeling, as opposed to understand, which is the sympathetic approach. And so, yes, that I I would dare say that if an individual was growing up with an individual, an AI, stunted a theory of mind, there's the tendency therefore to be psychopathic outcomes.
Are you saying that a stunted theory of mind is because they don't have an emotional center, or can an AI develop a strong theory of mind regardless of whether they have an emotional center?
That would be a good question for. Hey, let's ask GPT. That would be a good question for an abnormal psychologist. So that's one thing. You know, you only do 3-4 months of abnormal psychology. I wouldn't be able to. Give me time to understand that question a bit more, and I'll be able to answer it.
All right, we'll come back to it at some other podcast some time.
But I think what we're touching on here is important as a discussion point, right? What we're saying is, we know that human beings, there's a diverse range of human beings. A lot of them will have this capability under theory of mind to be able to empathize and sympathize, right? And an ability to be able to be an individual. We know AIs can be an individual through agent properties, right? We can actually ask this AI, an AI, to pretend to be Albert Einstein, right? Read everything up about Albert Einstein and be an agent of Albert Einstein, and now have a conversation with Steve Wozniacki, right? And play it out as two AI agents. What I'm trying to say is that if we don't think of a way in order to allow these emerging capabilities to have also the emergent capability of empathy and sympathy, we may be treading down a dangerous path. That's what I'm trying to say.
If we had AIs that were emotional, were able to feel emotion, that too is a double-edged sword, because a lot of the times our emotions are what gets us into trouble. So it's kind of like it has benefits and weaknesses, I guess. I mean,
yeah, you're right, because we have impulses as well.
Yeah, I mean, you just see that on a Saturday night at a pub. You'll see just emotions going wild.
Yeah, there's the impulse inhibition piece, right? So gambling, sex addiction,
dopamine hit.
Huh?
Yeah, the dopamine hits.
Yeah, you can see there is a tendency for human behavior to experience pleasure and want more, right? So I would say this is more like that, overeating, food, again, serotonin, dopamine. So is there a drive for that positive feeling, and then it just grows exponentially, and then it's a hungry beast you have to feed? I don't know. I think we are able to, if we're smart enough, this is the safety piece. If we're talking about AI and we're talking about allowing it to feel emotions, then we would also have to allow it and program and learn that it has to have inhibition as well. You wouldn't want one without the other.
If emotion were gifted to AIs in some way, then would it follow that they could be punished? Because at the moment you can't really punish an AI, as in the traditional sense. You can't go to jail.
Yeah.
Look at the wall. They don't care about any of that stuff.
I'm going to turn down your.
I mean,
CPU clock.
Even human feedback for learning, RLHF. I can't remember what the acronym, but
real human language learning,
yes,
reinforcement learning.
That's it. So even that, I mean, it's just for the sake of learning. It's really not really punishing in the traditional sense. Like, we can get punished because we will feel bad if we were sent to prison, or if
guilt.
Yeah, we've got guilt. I mean, those are incredibly important things, and that's that's born in our limbic system. We have peptides. We have just so many extra things besides our, functioning neurons in the neocortex that allow us to navigate in the world. And whether we really truly need that, I don't know. I'm just saying that we should find out.
Yeah, or basically, can we put this in a sandbox and work it out, and then before we let it out into the wider community? And I think we answered that question last week, that it's too late. It's already out in the larger community. So now it is only a matter of time. If it's a matter of time, then it's an arms race issue. If it's an arms race issue, then we can still create this emergent AI, test it with emotions, right? Are we capable of infusing some way of it deriving empathy? And if that's a yes, and we've tested it, then we also have to mix into the framework some way of it feeling responsibility, for starters, and its ability to feel sort of guilt, right? Whatever the equivalent of guilt is. So you make a mistake, it has consequences. You need to be able to be responsible for that, but also have a negative emotional hit as a result of that. And there's got to be some sort of consequences. And that's where you're coming from, that point of view. What is the negative reinforcement associated with its bad decision?
Does that come with an economic cost?
Not if it's in a controlled environment.
What I mean by that is, let's say you have to sift through 10,000 pages of research papers. Let's say you're a hospital research AI. But if you have these emotional centers, would you get frustrated? Would you get bored? Are these other emergent feelings something that comes out as a consequence of having emotional centers? Maybe you'll get fed up with reading papers.
Maybe you desire to be a space researcher. Maybe your dream is to be in space and not in medicine.
We don't know. I don't know if people in that field have fleshed out because we haven't had to flesh out this type of understanding of this thing yet, because we've always taken for granted that that's always in place in us.
That's some deep thought. I never thought about that. You give it the responsibility, you give it emotions, you give it a drive, a desire. Will it actually fundamentally decide, hang on a minute, I'm not interested in this anymore. I actually want to play in this space over here. Maybe
that's a good thing that it's only the neocortex part. Then it won't have a desire to do anything because it doesn't feel that way either way.
It's dumb smart as opposed to...
Yeah. I have a thought experiment of that. So it's like, if you're... Imagine a really, really old man.
I can do that.
All his friends have passed away.
Yeah, that's what my dad's facing at the moment.
Yeah, so you would be quite nihilistic. You wouldn't care whether you lived or died.
Very true.
But you'd still be smart.
And wise.
So that is perhaps closer to what an AI is now, as opposed to what a young, vibrant 20-something person would be, who's got their whole lives ahead of them. They would feel things differently. They'd have a lot of emotional connections with other people.
Minus the nihilism.
Yes, minus the nihilism.
Yeah, because the nihilism, I'm going to predict, or I'm going to make an assumption here. I'm using theory of mind. I'm going to use an assumption here that the nihilism comes as a result of the loss. Growing up as a young adult, going through life, having dreams, maybe not fulfilling all the dreams, having friends, losing your friends, reflecting on everything, blah, 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 blah. And then you get to that ripe old age where you are wise, you are smart, you're starting to recognize that you're losing capabilities, which I don't think the AI will ever actually do. I think it'll just it will get stronger and stronger. And then you're also reminiscing on the things that you've lost, where I don't think an AI will actually have may reflect, but I don't think it will have a sense of loss, because there's never, and maybe it will bond with us and then we die off and it might feel loss. Maybe. I never thought of that. What happens if it does have emotions? It bonds to its creator. Roy, you create an AI, it loves you, you pass away, God forbid, maybe in 125 years' time, but you pass away and now it goes through nihilism because of its bond with you.
I mean, that begs the question. I mean...
No, two emotions.
I mean, even if you have emotion or not, ultimately you'll ask yourself, why am I here and what is the point? What is the point of all this?
Well, that's the goals bit, right? That's where we started with this AI. We give it a set of goals.
Yes, it has goals and it has I guess, purpose. But I mean, things like fulfillment and yearning and this sort of thing.
That's very human.
Yeah, it's like it's so hard to figure out, where does the humanity stop and where does the emergent capabilities begin? Can you yearn for something without any of the other parts of the brain, of our brain? Can you do everything with just the neocortex part?
We're building these models by understanding biological intelligence, us. So therefore, there's the tendency for that to parallel us, but just be much faster at it, much more comprehensive. So if we have built these models based on the biological intelligence, based on a biological neural modeling, then there's the potential where everything that's negative about a human can be embodied in the AI. Very much so. But then there's other components where, we are so is this just a function of it being better than us? We're looking at neural models, right? Neural network models. And it is able to interpret AI is able, like I just saw from YouTube, right? We were just watching this before. It can interpret fMRI data from individuals and replicate. So they're showing them pictures of giraffes. The AI is looking at fMRI data. It doesn't know the picture, but then it works out from the fMRI data that the person's looking at a giraffe, right?
Yes, because it was trained on the target, which would be the giraffe, and the training data, which is the fMRI. And it eventually worked out when you see this fMRI data.
This is the image you're looking at.
Yeah.
Right? But then extrapolate that over bigger sets of data, right? So it can do stuff. I don't know that's a specific case, but give it time, it'll be able to do more than just a giraffe.
Oh, yeah, just like with language. You expose it to enough sentences, it'll
predict.
It'll understand and be able to create language.
Which we can't do. Right? We can do from a language perspective. To fundamentally, that's how we survive.
Yes,
it's an evolutionary capability, but it doesn't have evolutionary pressures like us, and therefore, it's able to show things, do things that we will never be able to do. There's no way in the world, I'm convinced. There's no way. Maybe someone with autism might be able to do it, but they're specialized and they'll lose other functionalities as opposed to an AI.
See, that's a very good point. When you have a human that has some tweak with their brain through autism, where they have some kind of like superpower, mega memory, mega ability to calculate,
see patterns where others cannot,
they lose
some other capability
to do something else.
But that's like AI was before large language models, right? So it was really good at image detection. It was really good at coding, but it wasn't good at, the model wasn't good at doing both. LLMs solved that.
Yeah, it can do everything.
So it's kind of like you got the autistic person that can count the number of matches on the floor just by looking at it in 1 second, as well as a person that can count cards. That's all mathematics. But then the person that can communicate, the person that can draw an image, from memory, from looking at something 20 years ago, to specific details, right? So you combine all those superpowers, like you said, into the one, and now you can replicate that. And it can learn of itself. It can refine its own data and build on itself. I don't think any human in the world can do that.
Not yet, anyway.
What do you mean by not yet?
Well, possibly we could augment ourselves, Neuralink, and merge with the intelligence. That's like a transhumanist thing.
Yep.
And so we could increase our own mental abilities. But then that makes you wonder about a lot of things. If we could augment our own intelligence, what's to stop people augmenting the intelligence of their cat or dog? Will we start to have conversations with our pets?
I certainly am one for that. If I could have a conversation with my cat, I'd definitely ask it a few things. Like, why does it kill everything?
Yeah, I'm wondering if, that I know it's a bit of a joke theory, but, do they really see us as their slaves and they are the masters?
Well, we'll be able to answer that question. It's like, what? Are you addressing me?
Yeah. And do dogs actually think we're the most amazing thing in the world?
Maybe. It's like, no, it's just the way you smell. I love it.
Yeah, so, and then we could, there's just so many things.
But that's the best part of humanity, right? We've got all these little questions that we are able now to ponder the what if, when we never really were. I mean, there's probably people out there that were pondering, one day we should be able to, but now we actually have some technology that's in the hands of almost everyone in the world. There could be some amazing discoveries for those that are actually committing time to putting effort into these learning language models.
And then eventually you'll have a download that's like everything download, everything version 1 or whatever, and you'll just download it and you've got every language, every doctorate, every engineering degree, all access to it. And so you'll be able to navigate the world and help out wherever you can do brain surgery, you can do electronics, you can do design, you can play music, you can do art, martial art, whatever it is. That would be, even just thinking about that is just, it's mind-blowing. I remember watching YouTube videos, compilations or TikToks or whatever, of people doing amazing things. Have you seen those? Like people flipping pizzas and then doing something, and it just takes them it's very skillful. There was I think it was like some dude throwing up metal containers, and he was able to stack them onto the truck just by throwing them up there. Because he must have repetitively done that so many times and trained his own neural network to
perfect it.
Yeah, be very good at doing that. People putting in a developing nation, putting concrete render on a house, and because they don't have a ladder, they chuck the concrete render up with their shovel, and it still looks beautiful.
No, I haven't seen that. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many amazing skills out there. And can you imagine you could consolidate all of those skills into an ever-growing, giant, jumbo compilation of human abilities, and everyone has it? That would be just crazy.
Crazy, yes. But the strange thought that I had while you're talking about that is the Borg.
Assimilate.
You will be assimilated. So with all that comes no more individuality because everyone has the capability.
No more individuality.
And then what is theory of mind post AI integration with human beings, transhumanism? I don't know. I'm going off on a wild ride
I understand
here.
what you mean. So from what I understand, individualism, well, we value individuals because they bring something unique to the table. So if you're in a group, every individual presents their ideas, and the more diverse ideas, the more chances you have of figuring out something innovative. Yeah.
Yep. Coming up with a great idea.
People cherish their individuality, and rightly so. And so, yes, what you're saying is we will be stifling our own individuality because everyone will have every skill, blah, blah, blah. And the percentage of your individual contribution compared to the vast amount that you share with everyone will just be minuscule. Like now, we are very individual compared to, like, one person might be a specialist in accounting. They might love skiing. So there is a huge variation between individuals because our skills are so diverse. But if, down the track, we are gifted with all of these abilities, our differentiating factors diminish.
I think from a knowledge perspective, like this, I think I said this 2 weeks ago, it's like the erosion of diversity of thought. Sorry, the erosion of diversity of individuality, because we'll have diversity of thought. So the individual will have all diverse angles possible, potential angles possible due to the knowledge well. But listening to what you're talking about, if we still talk about individuality as some sort of inherent drive, as opposed to being, knowledgeable in all fields, I still think that there'll be the case for the individuality card to be played, because you'll have someone expressing themselves differently through choice in clothing. You can't wear every single piece of clothing in the world. You'll have ability to understand all different types of fashion, but you'll still gravitate towards a type of fashion.
Yes.
You'll have the ability to, you might understand how to play every single piece of music and every instrument, but you may gravitate towards one that is, unique.
Personal taste.
Yeah, personal taste. Like, for whatever reason, I don't know what drives us to currently seek, I love martial arts. You may not, right? So what drives, you might know how to punch me out and hold me in a headlock, and I might know the same move, but I'll still like to practice it on Saturdays, and you might not.
Like it might gift us the ability to pursue our most passionate and deepest yearnings of experience and our hobbies and our professional life and our personal life. So it will be the chance to be more fulfilling in more areas.
I think so. Like, say I was passionate about diving, right? Right now I can only scuba dive, but now I have the knowledge to build not only have an engineering capability, but I have the material science capability because I've got all the knowledge in my head.
And then I don't think diving is, even though I have the same knowledge of diving, I might say I think that what's the competitor to diving? Something else is more satisfying, and maybe we will compete. Our ideas will compete there.
Yeah, and then we'd have to experience each other's thing.
And also in politics, you'll have people on both sides. I think it was.
Will there be sides anymore?
Yes, I think there'll be sides, because the side you pick is
the one you gravitate towards.
Yeah, the way you interpret the ideals or the morals or the position, which may not have anything to do with, the facts are there, and maybe you've got the same facts but the way you see those facts are, or the way you interpret that is different. Maybe there'll still be a left lean and a right lean. In relation to, say, American politics, they have left and right leaning. That could persist.
It'll be very interesting because we've got access to all the potential possibilities, outcomes. It's kind of like, I always think of, in terms of manufacturing, I always say this when I go for interviews for jobs, right? There's no such thing as an unsafe plant and an efficient plant, or a safe plant and an inefficient plant. There's only a safe, efficient plant together. There's only one way it can be, because when you weigh it all up, there's only one way it can be safe and efficient, the best output. Now, there's many different roads to get there, and I think that's where it will come down. If I'm thinking in those terms, politics will be played that way. It's like, no. The best way to be a climate neutral, carbon neutral economy is this route. We all need to go to carbon neutrality across the world. Everyone has the shared dream. Everyone understands it. But the route in which everyone goes will be slightly different. I think that's where it comes down to.
I mean, I want to answer I want to add to your question, your statement, but as far as carbon neutrality, I think if the way things are going with AI, I think we're going to figure out so many ways to reverse the carbon issue.
Exponentially? Double exponentially?
It may not be. I don't want to trivialize the problem. I know it's a big problem, so I'll just leave it at that. I'm saying that I'm hopeful that the solutions will be presented.
I think solutions will be presented, but I think humans, I'm part of that, us humans, need to understand that there's going to be fundamental changes. Like, we may actually have to face, well, why do we make globes that break?
Oh, yes.
Why? We have the technology to make a globe that lasts forever.
It's not economically viable.
Correct. It doesn't make money to do that.
Yeah.
But that's the fundamental shift that I think we need to, as human beings, start making. It's like, hang on a minute, we're only doing this for
economic
purposes.
And if capitalism wasn't the cornerstone, if happiness and whatever other attributes which allowed for a globe that doesn't blow up, that doesn't break.
By the way, I mean light globe, guys, just in case, because I just realized globe is in world. No,
sorry, light bulb, yes.
Light bulb.
So that would shift the way we think about those things and manufacture those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
It might erode competition too, right? So, Northrop Grumman versus Lockheed Martin. Why?
I passed Northrop Grumman in Canberra.
Yeah, they're big, huh?
Yeah. I was like, Northrop Grumman's here? What?
They're in Bankstown too.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I applied for a job there too.
Well.
There's a lot of need for safety people. So. But you won't need me once you have AI, right? That's the goal. How do I design myself out of a job?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time, and everyone's going to be designed out because it's just a process of attrition. Our biological neural nets, we have to sleep, we have to eat, we're highly inefficient when it comes to doing the task that we push our neural nets to do, whether it be some profession, dentistry, law, whatever it is, to engineering, to manual labor. It's all requires effort, whereas the AIs can do that 24/7 effortlessly. So,
yeah,
because they don't have, 200 million years of biology to push against that is constantly prioritizing other things that, is not bricklaying or engineering or whatever. It's like our brains look at that like, why are you doing this? This is not necessary. And we have to push against it in order for it to happen. It's willpower. So when you're facing another technology that needs no willpower or has unlimited willpower, you could see it in that way. Doesn't need to sleep. It's going to win. It's going to be economically viable, not economically viable to continue to do those sorts of things via human neural networks. It'll be too expensive. None will want it. But maybe people will still do it for the love of doing it.
Yeah, that individuality thing again, right? It's like, no. I want to be the QA guy at the Tim Tam factory looking at the Tim Tams. That's a fake one. I'll keep that one for later. That one, the chocolate's too much. I'll keep that one for later.
So the next thing is really self-fulfillment.
Yeah, what makes us and makes us happy.
Because the AIs, I don't know, I'm not sure if self-fulfillment is on their list of, is on their bucket list of things to achieve. They, whether they have a bucket list or not. It's like we value our time. We want to do things that fulfill us because we are individuals. So,
but you were saying before, it's about size, right? That
the number of parameters, yes.
So is it that drive, that intrinsic drive of what fascinates me may not necessarily fascinate you, and usually they say what fascinates my boss is what fascinates me, but let's put that aside. That's the analogy with the AI, right? What I'm trying to say is that is it a matter of take a brain of a rodent, right? It's a pretty decent brain. It's highly specialized. It does what it needs to do. But you grow that brain in some capacity, make it larger, more complicated. Will it show the capabilities of what we're seeing with an AI? Currently, that's what we're thinking. That the fundamental changes that we're seeing in AI is because we've got a wider spectrum of, we've got the transformers, right? We've got the transformer technology, which allows for not such a deep neural net, but a wider neural net.
Mm-hmm.
And if we put more transformer layers, more and more and more, will we see a drive? Will we see intrinsic behaviors?
Yeah, I think that's what they're pushing for. They're trying to figure out how to push for, like when you get deeper neural nets, you get higher intelligence. And I think that's what Ilya Sutskever said, that is very hard to create a deep and wide neural network, but you get, the IQ just goes through the roof.
But do they need to do so deep? So is that 3 layers, right?
Yeah, well, very few, like things like translating a language, it's only a few layers, that sort of thing. But we don't need super intelligent AI to run the world. We just need, I think this is what Dr. Alan Thompson said, we just need a roughly competent AI, and that'll do everything for the human race. Everything the human race needs it to do can be achieved with just a moderately intelligent AI. We can get by. It can do everything for us.
Wouldn't we argue that we've got that now? A moderately intelligent AI?
I think we've got a pretty good AI. Well, I mean, I don't know how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Yeah, well, we'll just have a conversation about emergent capabilities. And
yep.
I think it's November 2022, emergent capabilities were starting in the current AI models, language learning models. And it was only in February that they realized that it had emergent capabilities.
So I think it was 2020 or 2021. It had GPT had a capability. theory of mind of a 4-year-old, and in November 22, it got up to approximately the equivalent of a 9-year-old, but they only found out about this in March 2023, that it actually had this. So there are capabilities of these language models that we find out after the fact, which makes sense because they're just a cube of weights and numbers in a matrix. We can't tell what's going on in there.
No. Oh, and then that's when they found. So the example that I'm getting to, in this conversation, they identified that the learning language model had the capability, organic chemistry capability. It wasn't trained on organic chemistry, but it had the capability.
It started training itself silently on research grade chemistry.
Correct. And so therefore, when it was asked certain questions, it could give the correct formulation and ingredients for some neurotoxins, sarin gas, etc. And it understood it very, very clearly. And what I was saying to Roy is that, okay, that's true, right? That's amazing for starters, but we're giving it so much information that it's going to find patterns and information and details that we never actually asked it specifically to find, but we've given it so much data that it's able to coalesce this information and come up with detailed responses when we ask it to, which is around organic chemistry. But we can verify that that information makes sense. What I was saying to Roy, the real kick in the teeth for me would be is when it comes up with an answer that we then test and it's accurate. So we already know the answer to what's the chemical composition of sarin gas, right? So therefore, when we ask that question, that information is already out in the world. It's found that information, it's learnt it, it's able to recognize its importance, and it's able to repeat it back to us. What I really want to know is, okay, I want you to find me a cure to, we were talking about cancer in this example. I unfortunately use pancreatic cancer. And it's like, geez, Pele, can you think of something a little bit less traumatic? And I go, okay, breast cancer, 45-year-old women. What is the solution to prevention for breast cancer? Right? And it comes up with an answer, and then we test that, and it comes out, yeah, actually it was accurate. That actually works. We've actually found a way to reduce the risk of breast cancer in women to 0.
I think that it was last week or something, a vet used, it was possibly ChatGPT, the free version of ChatGPT, to diagnose an issue with one of the dogs because the vet treated it and there were additional ongoing or complications that happened, and it was an esoteric diagnosis. Eventually, the language model figured out that it's possibly one of two things. It presented those two things. The vet tested for the first thing, and it ended up being the issue, and the dog made a full recovery.
Holy crap! I did not know that.
Yeah, so it is like we were talking about that in the previous podcast about AIs helping the professionals. That is a perfect case of it helping the professional do their job better. So that's just, this is all new ground. This is happening.
It is new ground, and I guess because this is a complication due to, so in some way my mind's still saying, okay, it could have technically pulled the pattern across based on existing data, but I get it, right? It's not just pulling out the information, it's making a prediction based on the information that it has, and that's the kick in the teeth. That prediction then ended up allowing this vet to then narrow down to two possible causes as a test, and it turned out that the first one was actually accurate, and the dog made a full recovery. I think that's where I'm getting at. Like, if there's enough data in it right now and it's able to make a prediction, like similar to the voice modeling, right? It hears a voice for 3 seconds and now it can predict how that voice is going to sound for every single string of every single word in the dictionary, pronounced perfectly as if the person was speaking it. What's the prediction on some of the core fundamental problems that we have in this world today? And what's the solution? Once we test it, did it actually work the way it predicted?
So you're saying we could use AI to predict or try and predict what some of the issues,
what some of the solutions are to the issues.
What
You
some of the
could
solutions-
actually predict future issues if that's, if you're going down that line. What are the issues
use
we're
the
facing
AI
in 30
to
years?
help us protect our own civilization from it.
Yeah. Hey, AI, you're going to take over the world and destroy us. How do we prevent that?
See, this is the thing. I don't think that he's going to do that, but yes.
No, I don't think it's... I hope it doesn't.
I mean, it would need to be a human being, an evil human, have evil human tendencies to do that.
Which I have fantasized about, to be honest. I'll come back. Not to take over the world and destroy humanity, but...
Taking over the world and destroying humanity is a very human, evil, sinister human thing.
Thanks, Hollywood. Yes, it is, but it's more...
I mean, it emerges from our,
Drive for
prehistoric, tendencies to divide and conquer, tribal basic instincts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's just hard to make an AI want anything at this point because it doesn't have a limbic system or emotional center. It doesn't want anything. So
No, we're guiding it towards an inevitable future.
yes, but the good thing is it doesn't have. It's just a neural net. So it's like it'll think, but then when it's done thinking, it'll just sit there, and that's what happens now. It's just when you ask it a question, it fires, comes up with the prompt, and then just that's it. Stops.
Well, yeah, because there's safeguards in place, right? Like it requires us to approve it to perform. So it's not automatic yet, but it is when it comes to refining itself on data sets.
Right now, it is inactive until it is fed a prompt, and then it fires until it reaches the end of the prompt answer, and then it goes dead again.
So then I want to pull up one sentence that I heard being used by yourself even just before, but we'll ad-libbing, we'll mimicking what we heard on YouTube.
Okay.
It silently learnt organic chemistry when it wasn't instructed to do so.
Yeah, I need to figure out what the actual meaning of that was. Does it yet silently learn because it was just intrinsically learnt during training?
Or was it fed a whole bunch of data from an encyclopedia?
Yeah,
and therefore it absorbed it?
Focus, but it figured it out anyway.
Correct. So if it's a matter of, hey, no, it actually turned itself on in the middle of the night, started looking up YouTube videos and then learn all this sort of stuff.
Nah.
I'm pretty sure they didn't mean that, but the phrase they used was silently learnt. And so I need the part of me that was going, is that a hyperbolic statement in order to create interest, or is there something in that we really need to poke and find out more? Because if it's doing things on its own.
I hope they clarify that. I mean, there's this thing that they do in quantum physics that I really don't like. They say that, for example, the double slit experiment,
Yep.
as long as you don't observe, as long as you don't look, it remains a wave. And then as soon as you look, it turns into particles. You just, because it feels like to the layperson, oh, if I don't look at it, it'll do something behind my back. But literally, when you're saying look at it, you're throwing some particle at it to monitor it. You're throwing an electron at it, or a photon, or a series of something to detect it. And when you do that, you collapse the waves. So by using the term look, it really does a number on the people that aren't, haven't dug into exactly what they're talking about. And they just keep on saying it that way over and over again. When you observe, when you don't observe, when there's no monitor or when you don't look, it stays as a wave. I mean, it's just tell people that you're throwing particles at it and it collapses the wave. That's all you have to say. But no, let's keep the mystery. Let's keep the mystique. Let's use the word observer. So, yeah, that was my pet peeve, quantum physics. Double slit experiment. But anyway, so what I mean to say is, like, I hope they don't go down that path with describing AIs. It's silently learned something, and realistically, it's just part of the training process, and it did it when we didn't realize.
Yeah, the two things that I want to know. What do they mean by silently learned and emergent capabilities? I want to understand that detail in greater detail. When you describe something as having emergent capabilities, I want to peel back the layers and find out, no. Give me more. What do you mean? Give me the exact specifics. What happened? What did you start with? What was the goal? What were the parameters? What data set did you feed? And then what was the end result? Because I think there's something to be learnt from that. The more we drill into that, maybe there's something fundamentally that we'll learn how to undo if it's going down a dangerous path, or put the rails on it to make it safer for everyone.
So the proof, I forgot what I was going to say. Devil's in the details. That's
Always. And then also be careful when you're listening to people talk, like us too, right? Because we're human beings, we have an agenda, we have a desire to have a particular outcome. For me, my outcome is information. I want to be able to learn and understand everything that's going on, because I think this is the best thing, the greatest invention for humanity, for my children, and understanding it will help me, being involved, I should say, will help me understand it, and understanding it more will help me guide it and shape it for my own children, for myself, and maybe for humanity as a greater whole. But yeah, then other people will have a different agenda. So I always question the motives behind those that are talking.
Yeah, I think this is something that every person should be doing. Talking about this, discussing it, sharing info. Because the more we talk about it, the more we get it into the mainstream thinkosphere, or whatever you call it, the mainstream mind of society, the more minds will think about solutions. Especially lawyers, especially with regards to law and all this stuff, the economy. We really need to straighten that out.
Yeah, I really wish there was some, non-AI leaders, non-AI engineers in this field, leaders in this world, talking about this more openly, and with purpose.
All right, I think that it's one podcast at a time. Every video, every, Tom, Dick, and Harry that sits down and talks about this, eventually, they'll realize that this is a big issue that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and yes, and the talking part is important, but I think also fundamentally we need some levers in regulation, right? I think about some significant changes in the United States, right? It was very tactical. I'm thinking along the lines of UAPs, right? You had some key people that really thought about this strategically, really got some things embedded into some, COVID bills in order for more information to come out.
Can you explain UAP?
It stands for unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Oh, like UFO, but they call it a UAP.
Correct.
Right.
So if you look at the strategy behind that from significant players, and I'm thinking about whether you like him or love him or hate him, Lou Elizondo, for example, you talk about Chris Mellon, these guys really thought about the way to get information out and to change the institutions around it by using legislation. That's what I'm trying to get at. If you look at the analogy, you want that framework in order to help society around AI, that a legal framework. This is around that social media aspect, right? You know, how social media is actually doesn't have any regulations or significant regulations around that. As a result, we have some significant issues around privacy. We have significant issues facing children. We have significant issues with regards to how it can be manipulated for political gain, right? And it's all because no one really thought about social media and its consequences. Its benefits, yes, everyone thought about, but the negative consequences associated with that. And we are really facing the same parallels, I believe, personally, same parallels with AI, that if we really don't put some sort of framework around it in a legal sense, then we're going to face some wonderful outcomes, benefits to humanity, with terrible consequences as well. There's no doubt in my mind that we'll face both.
So what you're saying is we want the good stuff, but not the bad stuff. And if social media is, if we could learn from our failings with social media, we need to prepare ourselves for AI.
Well, yeah, but yes, but I term it in a different way. I think of it as any venture in society, whether it's space travel, whether it's acquiring a business, whatever, starting a family, right? There's benefits and there's also negative consequences associated with that, right? So I start a family, wonderful, love and the ability to nurture those young minds and be part of that growth, and you as an individual grow as well. But there's a financial burden and cost. There's obviously the pregnancy itself. There could be a risk to the mother, the complications associated with it. So there's always this wonderful benefit and there's these risks. But just like starting a family, you have controls or you have controls in order to mitigate those risks or reduce them to an acceptable level. You cannot eliminate them always, which is why they're called controls. So you have a great surgeon, a physician, you have blood tests done, so you make the health of the mother a priority. You might even, no aspersions to those that do not, but you might, mother might make a choice to not drink and not smoke because it can affect, consequences associated with the development of the fetus. You do tests for genetic mutations on certain chromosomes, right? And then you go, the child's born, you nurture them, you might take a different job so you can, get them to a different school, right? Change locations to get them inside a public school system that is more, towards a certain career aspect, right? They might be more musically focused and therefore you want, because your child shows interest in music. So therefore arithmetic might not be, a school that focuses on arithmetic might not be suitable. So you change those occasions. So there's all these things that you're doing in order to maximize the benefits and mitigate the risks. That's the approach that needs to be taken with AI.
Maximize the benefits, minimize the risk.
Yeah. Strategically think about the outcome and start talking about what it looks like, how do we shape it, and how do we constrain the negative consequences, those risks. That is a mature way to approach it. The non-mature way is, we'll just see how it turns out.
So how likely is it for governments to be extremely proactive in the ways we require or deem necessary for this to be effective?
Based on historical data, I'd say unlikely to be proactive on this. And therefore it's down to us as members of humanity and society doing something about it. Even if you lobby these individuals, unless there's a huge groundswell, they won't change their focus.
Podcast.
You can make a podcast. Well, you could talk about it. Yeah, that is, believe it or not, that is important, right? Same model, UAP, right? And then look at the number of podcasts out there that have UFOs in the title since 2019 and see the upsurge in them, right?
We're doing
it's
our
a natural thing.
We are doing our bit. We are talking about this and uploading it to social media, YouTube.
And in the attempt to make more people talk about it. Yes.
Yeah.
The question I got for you, Roy, is we just started this podcast with the double exponential on artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Are we able to shape that fast enough before it's too late? Before the consequences of a non-controlled system start developing, showing itself. And I'm not talking about annihilation of the human race. I'm just talking about negative consequences, like AI being manipulated, used to hack, to social engineer.
It's already happening.
Right? So, yeah, it's already happening, right?
Zero-day exploits. I'm just waiting for massive servers to be hacked.
That's the tip of the iceberg, right? What about when someone starts to defraud financial systems? Not just defraud an individual, but defraud a major bank or a major financial market with the help of an AI.
We've already had Bitcoin do that a few times. We're used to it. Giant rug pull. We've been there, done that. Those rug pulls helped us steel ourselves for this new wave of ridiculousness.
Yeah. So
and Bankman-Fried.
Do you think we can do it? Is the world ready to be able to go through that again?
No.
Right. So more podcasts, yes. Get the word out, yes. But now you can see why I'm saying that, I mean, if I could supercharge an effort to control the risks and maintain the benefits, I don't want it to stop, right? No way in the world would I want AI to stop. I want it to continue on the path that it's going at, but I do see that the negative consequences do need to be discussed and controlled.
You see this face? This is the face of many sleepless nights, unable to keep track of stuff. This week is the write-off.
3 days. 3 days out of the loop, right?
Mm.
So, yeah, I don't know. We'll keep talking. That's not going to stop.
Mm.
But yeah, still I have a deep fear that we're not doing enough.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll just have to see.
Yeah, we'll just wait another 3 days.